And welcome to yet another Search Engine Journal webinar. It's rainy and humid day here in West Virginia today, and we're so excited to have you all here with us. Today, we'll be joined by the podium team, Jared McKinney and Matt Boyce, who are going to be talking to us about some top secret for local SEO tips that even the experts miss. So most people are searching for, or more people are searching for local businesses than ever before. Think about your day-to-day and how you search. You know, I saw a stat recently by Google that said 76% of people who search for something nearby will visit that local business within a day. And a full 28% of those searches result in a purchase. Those are some big numbers. So it's clear that this also means that local search has never been as competitive as it is today. So how can your local business stand out and rise in the rankings? How can you make it easier for customers to find you and your business and connect with you? And this is what we're going to dive into today. My name is Heather Campbell, and I'll be moderating. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about you, Jared, and Podium before we get into some housekeeping tips?
Yes, absolutely. So Jared and I are based in sunny and hot Utah, Salt Lake City to be more precise. And Jared and I have worked together at Podium for a few years, where we basically help local businesses turn their landline into a textable phone number. And then we have a handful of services that you can do once you're a text-enabled business. But together, we've looked at effectively thousands of business websites, their local presence, their SEO, and we've compiled all that information into these 4 simple tips. So we're excited to share years of research today.
Awesome. We're excited to hear it. So just a couple housekeeping tips, then we're going to turn it over and you guys are going to steal the show. So if during this presentation, you all as the watchers have any questions or comments, please use the questions box in the bottom of your screen. As you're learning and taking in this information, you know, ask for further clarification. There's a good chance that you're not the only one thinking about that question. So we'll also be throwing out a couple poll questions through this training where you'll be able to participate and give us your thoughts and feedback. And your participation helps our engagement score and also lets our speakers gauge your knowledge and speak to that as well. So, you know, one of our goals for these webinars are to hit an engagement score that's at least 70. And in order to do that, we need you all as the watchers to be an active participant. So when you see those polls come up, you know, if you have questions, get them in the box, hit those buttons, you know, and let's really make this an engaging show for our guests today. So we'll do our best throughout to link to any resources or tools in the chat, but if we miss one, use the questions box to ask. Don't be shy. And then after the webinar, please stick around for a short survey. It doesn't take any more than 5 minutes. This information really helps us gauge what works for you and how we can make SEJ webinars more useful for you moving forward. And lastly, you will receive the full recording of this training later today. And that's enough from me. So without any further delay, let's get to it. Matt, it's all yours.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. So as we jump in, I'll give you a little preview about what we'll talk about. The first thing we want to jump into is Google reviews. All the ways to optimize your reviews and really get more of them. Second, we want to talk about your phone number and making it visible across your website and your various listings. Fourth, making yourself textable. What does that even mean? What does that mean for your business? And then we want to wrap up with claiming the business profiles, which ones matter, how to optimize those. And then again, we'll save time for Q&A as we go. So first, let's test out of SEO 101. And with that, I want to introduce Jared.
Yeah, so in the intro, we talked a little bit about what this webinar would be about and exactly the stuff that Matt pointed out. These are some things that people miss, even experts miss. And one of the keys sort of here is that we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about any of these things. Content, blog posts, keywords, backlinks have massive impact for organic search. My role at Podium in an acquisition lead role, I spend a lot of time thinking about our SEO, organic search, growing website traffic. That is very different though from local search. all the time I get questions about local search and what matters for local search, and that's what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about, is how you can grow your business through really simple things, and some very specific things that we've seen just from reviewing, like Matt said, thousands of local business websites and helping them grow their presence. So first up, we have 4 basic tips. After we go through these tips, we'll give you some sort of step-by-step ideas of how you can implement these tips. So the very first one is just about boosting local SEO through Google reviews. And this is like pretty straightforward. If you've ever owned or operated a local business, you're aware of and sort of like always thinking about reviews, especially if they're bad. If you've ever had a negative review from one guy who was just having a bad day, you think about that all the time, and it kind of pains you. And there's a very interesting sort of phenomenon of local business owners who get one bad review and then are like, you know what, I'm not doing local Google reviews anymore. I'm done. I'm off of it. I got that bad review. Someone pointed out that, my nose hairs were too long when I was at the register. I'm deeply offended and I'm passionate about not doing Google reviews. And that's totally the wrong opinion to have. And if you are of that opinion, we will do everything we can to change your mind during this webinar. Because if you're a local business, this matters because Google actually prioritizes local businesses in search results. So a lot of times it can be intimidating if you're a local retailer, you own a furniture shop or something like that, and you go online and you look for different things that you're trying to rank for, and you see Amazon, or you see some of these other really big names out there. The truth is you automatically have a leg up on Amazon and any of those other domains. Actually, if you see them in search results, that's a good sign, because they don't have very specific pages and they're not a local business. Because you have a physical location, Google's going to try and send you traffic. And those people who are searching for things near them, who are searching for local things, basically they always see a map pack in search results. And we'll show you what that looks like a little bit later and talk about ways that you can sort of rise to the top of those rankings. So that's just our first tip, is going all in on local Google reviews. So before, we don't have a dedicated poll question to this, so I just want you to think in your minds, which one of these businesses would you choose? This isn't a trick question. It's not the ACT here. So business A or business B, which one would you choose? All we have to look at is their star rating, right? So this is pretty straightforward. Unless you're a big fan of the little thumbnail there for business B, you really like the architecture, most of you are probably going to choose business A. Everyone would. But as you go to the next slide, you see that there's a lot more to your local presence than just a star rating. So now we see that one business has clearly been around a lot longer. They have 392 stars. At this point, does it change your mind at all which business you'd choose? For me, I like to support local businesses. I like to support new businesses and entrepreneurs. So I feel like I was already leaning towards A. I'm still going to choose A. But as we go a little bit deeper, there's a lot more to this than even just the quantity of reviews you have. So now we're looking at feedback. And one of the things that you see a lot in GMB profiles and in local business listings on Google is Google's going to surface sort of the most relevant and most recent reviews. So we have one review from yesterday, one review from 2 days ago. Clearly business A, maybe they're new, but they're killing it. Whereas business B, maybe they were killing it, but right now the only thing that they're killing is traffic to their store with really terrible reviews like this. So, if you own one of these businesses, or if you can relate to either of these, this is the sort of decision-making process that your customers are going through every single day. And one of the things to keep in mind is that even if you did, nothing crazy, but you just optimized for local search through Google reviews, the total quantity of people using search, Google specifically, to find local businesses is skyrocketing. It's going up hundreds, 300, 400, 500% year over year, depending on the vertical that you're in and depending on the industry that you serve. So just sort of the last point here to tie a bow on this, which business would you choose? We see business A got a 1-star review. The owner immediately responded and said, "We're sorry this happened. We want to make it right. Email us." And that's really what we recommend if you ever get those bad reviews, because honestly, they're not usually like indicative of the customer experience. It's just one person. And being that we work at Podium and we deal with this kind of a thing and automating review invitations and all of that all the time, one thing that we found is that when you ask regularly for customers to leave a review for your business, most of them will leave a review. And that sort of quantity of positive reviews will always outweigh 1 or 2 negative reviews. You know, and if you let a detractor determine the future of your local online presence, it's going to be really, really tough to grow that local business without spending a ton of money. And that's one of the huge benefits of focusing on this type of strategy, is that it compounds over time, you know, and you're not just pouring money into an advertising campaign. So if you could advance to the next slide here. We did in December, we did a piece of content called the State of Reviews, where we talked to thousands of business owners. And we didn't just ask them questions about themselves. We pulled a lot of data for thousands of business owners to get a really good idea of sort of the average experience of some of our customers who come to Podium. And here's what we found. On average, when one of those local businesses signs up, they have a star rating of about 4.2 stars, which that's pretty good. You know, 4.2 stars. I'm not gonna go to a business over 4.2 stars. And we found that in the first 90 days of connecting to our software and also just like requesting regular reviews, they started getting a ton of reviews, 3, 4, 5, even 10 times the number they were getting in the past. And so on average, that star rating went from 4.2 to 4.6 across the board. 4.6 better, you know, it's not 5.0. So like, you know, how much of an impact does that make? It makes a massive impact. So here's what we found. On average, those businesses, when they went from 4.2 to a 4.6, they got 49.8% more requests for directions. You know, when you look at a Google My Business profile, there's a couple of different sort of CTAs on there. There's a couple of different calls to action that customers, anyone searching, can take. One of the best indicators of intent is someone actually clicking a button to come to your business. And about 50% more people did that when someone regularly asked for and requested review invites from their customers. The other thing we found is that they got 67% more website visits. Imagine that, 67% more people on the website just from asking for reviews. They also got 85% more clicks on the clicks to call button, and 52% more Google My Business profile listing views. From doing something as simple as just automating and requesting reviews from people already coming to their business. Because the truth is, people, especially customers, want to support your local business. One of the biggest questions is whether or not you're giving them that opportunity and making it super, super convenient. And we'll talk a little bit more about convenience here on the next slides. Yeah, just right there is perfect. So Google prioritizes local businesses, results in local searches. So this, I talked about this a little bit already, but that's why local SEO is so important and why it's very different from organic search. You know, at Podium, we're trying to grow our website traffic, but in my role, we're not necessarily optimizing for people to come into our office, other than maybe the Jimmy John's delivery guy. We really want to get him in, which is troubling. Sometimes he can never find his way here for some reason. So as we think about for local businesses, what this means, one of the biggest things that I talked about earlier is just the map pack. So on this next slide, you see basically this is what I'm talking about, is the design of the map pack. And where you fall in that map pack and how deep into that map pack someone has to go in order to find your business, in a lot of ways will determine how many customers and how much traffic you get from that Google My Business listing. If you came to this webinar, you probably want to improve your local search, probably want to get more people to your website and probably also your business. What's crazy is that if you just Google, local search rankings, you can read a whole article that Google has about how to optimize your local business for local search rankings. And they call out 3 things, basically. They call out relevance, distance, and prominence. Some of those are obvious. Distance, right? Like if someone's outside my business, they're probably pretty close. And so there's a really good chance that Google's going to show my business in search results if someone's right next to it and they're looking for something similar. Some of these other ones are a little bit less obvious. So relevance, what they say is that relevance has to do with the intent of the search. And also one thing they mention explicitly is having a complete Google My Business profile. You know, Google can't match searches with your business if it doesn't know everything about your business. One thing that stood out to us as we've just talked to businesses in a lot of different industries is auto dealerships, for example, a lot of times will have a Google My Business profile. You know, it's obvious from search results that they sell cars, but one of the things that is less obvious and is actually the highest sort of like margin business is the service center. And we found that when they add that service center in and also have that as part of their Google My Business profile, and there is a way to do both and have them still be part of one profile, it has a massive impact in the number of customers coming from local search. You know, so if you want to hone in on that relevance and get found more often, you really have to have a very complete Google My Business profile. You know, that's not just a picture of your business and a phone number. That's everything. That's category tags, that's doing posts regularly, that's establishing a service area. All of those things are going to matter. And then the very last thing on here is prominence. You know, if I were to start a local business tomorrow, it would be super prominent to like my mom. Matt would probably see it on LinkedIn. It would be really prominent to like an ex-girlfriend maybe on Facebook. But what does prominence mean and how does Google think about prominence? One of the things they really hone in on in the sort of like subheading in the paragraph underneath this prominence tag is they talk a lot about sort of the quantity and quality of your reviews. You know, how else is Google going to determine the prominence of your local business unless you're regularly getting customer feedback in the form of reviews? So those are sort of some like suggestions that Google has given to you. And believe it or not, people are suspicious of companies like Google nowadays, and you know, sometimes rightly so, who knows. But I think one of the keys is that Google wants to send you traffic if you own a local business. Because they want to, their number one job is to match search intent with answers. And so if you own a business that matches the search intent of someone local and you have answers to those questions, you know, if someone's got a cavity and you're a dentist, they want to send traffic to your business. But you have to, on your end, show them that you're going to do to that traffic what they're expecting and service that customer in the way that they're expecting. And so these are some easy ways that you can sort of hone in on that and help grow your business.
If I can give Jared a little bit of vocal rest here, it's not that you're probably not all car dealerships, but you can just imagine a car dealership is pretty similar to another car dealership as far as Google's concerned. They have websites, they probably have optimized their listing. So how do they take all those car dealerships that look about the same and stack rank them? And one of the main factors is this user-generated content, effectively the relevance, distance, and prominence of, but then also all those reviews that you add on top.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the studies that was done, I say recently, it was recent when I was putting the slide deck together, but information comes so fast today that, you know, it's probably outdated. Review signals like the quantity and quality of your reviews are making up about 16% of the search engine decision-making process. And that is specifically for the local map pack. Another stat that blows my mind is something like, I think it was 44% of retailers have yet to claim their Google My Business profile. Right, so like if you're not claiming your Google My Business profile, that's like akin to not unlocking the door when you are open for business. You know, like you have to give Google the opportunity to start sending you traffic. And I assure you, because I've seen it a million times, once you do that in a way that is convenient, and once you set up that profile so that Google can tell everything that your business is about and everything that you do, you'll start getting more customers. And that happens every single day. And we've seen it firsthand a ton of times. So next up, we're just going to go step by step on some of the specific tactics. You know, the overlining strategy that I've sort of beat to death is like, obviously, you're going to need Google reviews. That's going to help. There's other things you can do, but one of the keys is sort of creating this process that's very sort of hands-off and very convenient. Because unfortunately, you can go out and try and get fake reviews, but there's no way to really trick Google. People have been doing things like buying backlinks on shady websites and other kind of gray hat tactics like that for a long time. But anytime you listen and talk to some of the heads of search at Google, they know what's going on and they have lots of ways of figuring out sort of those loopholes. There's no shortcut to great customer service. And that's really what we want to hit home. Customers just after one bad experience, 66% are going to be done. And that's with a brand that they loved. So imagine if they just feel like mediocre about the experience at your business. You really have to provide this awesome customer experience. If you do have someone that leaves you a negative review, if you do have someone who doesn't love their experience at your business, I would just say don't sweat it. Do what we saw at the very front end of this webinar and respond instantly and be as helpful as possible. But 1 or 2 negative reviews, if you're asking all your customers for feedback, is sort of par for the course, and it's not the end of the world. So akin to that, the next step is just that timing is everything. I recently purchased a home, and as I was walking through that house, the person who was walking me through it, I think maybe 15 times talked about the review that I was going to get, the invitation for a review that I was going to get after we were done. And I didn't even particularly like the guy, but he just said it so many times that it felt dishonest not to give him, a 5 stars. And it wasn't that I had a bad experience, I had a great experience, but he knew that throughout the process of buying the home, seeing a living room and seeing a wall that I don't have to put shiplap on that already looks good, like I felt great and was having a good time sort of going on that walkthrough. And so he knew that that was a great time to suggest like, hey, things are looking pretty good. You can give me 5 stars and I'd love it. My job really depends on like making sure that you're happy. And I knew that at the end of the day, if I wasn't happy, I could go directly to him with that feedback. And that's one of the reasons that we're so big on having this textable communication with local businesses, is so that people know if there is anything wrong, they know you'll fix it. They know you'll do something about it because you are paying attention to their service, and you do want them to have a 5-star experience every time. And then setting the expectation for the review. This made a massive impact in my experience when I was purchasing this home. And sales people are really great at this, at building that ask into sort of like the walkthrough experience. And I think with local businesses, you have, for some of these businesses, you only have like a few minutes with a customer. And so making sure that when you do have that time with that customer, when they are getting exactly what they expect, that you sort of prime the pump and let them know that, hey, we're going to send you a link. We're going to send you a review invite right after this. It's totally free for you. It doesn't cost you anything, but we would love to know how we did. And just making sure that you are providing world-class customer experience, because it's tough to really fake that. And then one of the last things is just inviting via text. So we talk to a lot of businesses of all shapes, sizes, and sophistication, I think, is probably the best way to say it. But the variety of methods in which local businesses ask customers for reviews is pretty impressive. It's everything from like handing them a slip of paper to sending postcards in the mail to just emailing people after the fact. Think about this stat for a minute. Text messages have a 99% open rate. If I sent any email campaign from podium.com that got a 99% open rate, I would probably be promoted instantly, because the open rates, if you've done any email marketing, are not close to that. And one of the other things that we love is we see customers not just send review invites over text, but send all kinds, text marketing campaigns and other things like that over text. They don't just get opened, but they get replied to. One of the other stats is that within, I think it was 95% of those messages get replied to within 3 minutes. So if you're using this channel, this isn't just like a cool way to run your business. This is a new way to communicate with customers that's objectively superior to postcards, to email. We don't have data on slips of paper handed at the cash register, but I suspect this is more effective, really tough to click a link on those slips of paper. So there's some ways you can gather those high quality reviews, and some specific things that we would recommend you do in order to sort of like hone in on that part of your business and start seeing that impact from an increased online reputation.
So we'll go ahead and launch that poll.
Thank you for
And
launching that. I'll go ahead and speak to this real quick. So I don't know if you're anything like me. I can check my phone real quick. Last I checked, I had 56 missed calls and I think 115 unlistened to voicemails. So on the latest OS update of at least the iPhone, if you have calls from an unknown number, you can just immediately skip them and not even have them go to your phone. And that's not just me, I don't think. I hope not. We'll see, I guess, in a minute. But that speaks to sort of this larger trend of how do you get in front of customers? How do you speak to potentially people who have already supported your business? And how do you communicate with them in an effective way? Because this just, leaving voicemails, getting on the phone with them just don't work as well as it used to.
Jared, I'm going to go ahead and close that poll.
Okay.
And then so we'll share the results. And we've got a good question from Linda when you're done. So if you want to speak to this.
Yeah, great. So let's see. It looks like 23% always answer. That's fantastic. You probably talk to a lot of politicians or the Red Cross potentially, because they have expert follow-up on their phone tree. But then the rest of you, the 76%, ignore those phone calls to an extent. To be honest, I never talk on the phone, so pretty much everyone talks on the phone, so that's good. And this is exactly what we've seen at Podium. I think one of the keys to point out here isn't just that there's a better way to potentially communicate with your customers, it's that if you run any kind of business that relies on being on the phone with customers, when they get you're going to have to wait on hold, that's not a great experience. And if you are the business owner employing someone who's calling up and reaching out to these customers on the phone, imagine how much more efficient that person's time would be spent if they were to entirely over chat respond to multiple customers at once. It's a better customer experience. There's no phone tag. I'm not saying get rid of your phones or anything drastic like that, because a lot of people still need and appreciate and rely on phone calls. But there are other ways to do this that is not just better for your customers, it's more efficient for your business operations internally. And you can go to the next slide.
The other thing to consider while we're transitioning is this group is probably the cream of the crop, where odds are this crew of people is the one that is using their phone for work. It's probably different than the people that we're trying to get a hold of as our customers or prospects that that are more likely to even send us a voicemail.
Yeah, if you made it into the webinar today, then you are above average in terms of
exactly.
using technology.
Jared went through a lot of really strong tips. I just had one story I wanted to share on that same vein. I recently had a rock chip in my shield, and so I pulled out my phone. I searched for any glass shop or windshield repair or any auto service center near me. I found one that was pretty close. It was close to my house. I didn't even notice it because I just didn't need it previously. I went there. I really had a fantastic experience. They just rolled out the red carpet. It's one of the better, in-person experiences I've had. They fixed my windshield. Turns out I just needed a repair, not a replacement. And I was in and out of there within 15 minutes. And at the end of the visit, they said, Matt, we would really appreciate it if you could leave us a review. You'll get an email invitation after your visit. And I thought, this is incredible. If I ever want to leave a review for a business, this is the one. And I drove out of their parking lot, and that pain was gone, that problem was solved, and I just didn't think about it. And so about 3 days later, I got an email invitation saying, Matt, thanks for Thanks for coming in. Would you mind leaving us a review? And I was like, hey, there it is. I remember I went in, I clicked the link, and I tried to leave that review. And they took me through a series of screening questions to make sure I was going to have a good review. And finally, by the time I passed all those tests, they said, now would you like to leave a review? And I had to basically create an account on some third-party profile to leave a review. And I thought, it took me longer to leave a review than it did to actually get my windshield repaired. And so at that point, I just thought this just isn't worth it. So the more simple you can make that and set those people up for success, the better off you'll be. All right, thanks for that, Jared. Here's tip number 2. It's nap time, and what we mean by that is name, address, and phone number. We want to make sure that those are visible across all of your sites. One quick tip on that: let's just say it's Matt and Jared Snow Cones. We open a business this summer, and
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. We should do pretty well with our weather right here. So if on one listing we call it Matt and Jared Snow Cones, on the next listing we call it Jared and Matt Snow Cones, and then the other we just call it Snow Cones by Matt and Jared. Even if you abbreviate and spell Matt with one T on one listing and 2 T's on the other listing, the issue is Google doesn't know the difference. So they almost think that there are multiple businesses in Salt Lake City that have a Matt and a Jared selling snow cones. And so you just got to make sure that those are all consistent across all of your listings. But then specifically on some of those listings and on your website, you want to make all of your phone numbers clickable. You just imagine someone's on their phone, they're on your website, they once they navigate to your site or even on a listing, they want to call, and you just want to make sure that's quick and easy. So 76% of local searches do result in a phone call where they're actively trying to buy or make an appointment or do something. And so here's a quick tag. Take a screenshot of this if you need it. There's a handful of resources on Google's developer tools on how to do this, but make sure your website has actual clickable numbers. Next, embed a map of your location. So you want to make it really easy to find your location within Google Maps. So put that on your website, and I mean, obviously you'll have somebody that wants to go through and make sure that UX works and that someone can actually perform that functionality. So let's do another poll question. As we pull this up, when was the last time you did an audit of your listings? Was it in the last 30 days, the last 90 days, the last 120 days, or the final one is it's been a while? And I'll give you just a second. This is almost the digital version of doing a quick walk around your store and picking up some litter in the parking lot, or making sure there's no weeds in your flower beds. It's the type of thing that you just have to do. It's fast and it's easy. You just have to do it sort of frequently.
So Matt, while we wait for some of those answers to come through, we got about 30 seconds left on that. Linda asked us, she was impressed that it was a 99% open rate on the text, which, I mean, that for any marketer, that's incredible. But she wants to know if there's any data on blocking of the number. So if you get like a 99% open rate, what do the numbers look like for if you send the message and they're blocking your number? Because it was like an unwanted message.
Right.
Sorry.
Matt, did you want to talk to that?
Off the top of my head. Yeah, off the top of my head, my guess is that's going to be honestly falling in that 1% of messages. And I don't have that specific data handy, but I do have an anecdote. My dad is in his 60s, almost 70. Is not a techie by any stretch of the imagination. And if I were to pull up his cell phone and do 2 things, look at his text and look at his email, it'd be pretty telling. I would just guess that he probably doesn't have any more than 2 or 3 unread text messages, and honestly, it's probably 0. And then every time I go visit and meet up, I just look at his Gmail, And the last time I met with him, he had 12,000 unread emails. And so that stark contrast. Now, granted, he doesn't receive as many texts, but that's also part of the reason that they're so likely to be opened.
Yeah,
Hopefully that.
one thing I just wanted to add really quick, Matt, is that there are some specific sort of TCPA compliance laws when it comes to texting. Your customers do have to sort of like opt in a lot of ways in order to be able to receive that text message. So the 99%, you know, if someone has your number blocked, then they're not going to receive a text message from you, you know, in any way, shape, or form. If they've gotten a text from you and they have texted back stop or unsubscribe or whatever those keywords are, they are legally, you're not able to get a text message from you, basically. And it's sort of a hard question to have data on because there's sort of like two types of unsubscribes. You can unsubscribe from getting certain messages from a business. You can also do like a hard block of that number. And that a lot of that has to do with how like Twilio is integrated and how some of that stuff is set up behind the scenes. But that 99% is primarily referring to, you know, excluding that group of like, I have this business blocked specifically. So that's where the 99% comes from.
Great, thanks for that explanation. Okay, there's the results of your poll.
Yeah, this poll is really fascinating. The other one seemed a little more even, and this one is much different. So the two biggest are in the last 30 days, so pretty recently, versus it's been a while. So I would just say for the it's been a while group, take a quick look. You know, go to your listings from an incognito browser, see what your customers see. You know, you would pretty quickly notice if someone had a big spill or there was a mess inside your store. But often we just don't even realize that some of those things have happened on our online listings. Okay, fantastic. Jared, let's jump into tip number 3.
Yeah, so really the last point that I wanted to mention specifically was just having that textable number. It's such a big deal. I mean, I often say that like what we do at Podium is basically messaging and texting for businesses, and all of the products that we have are like how we do it. It's stuff that we've built on top of basically our thesis as a company, and that's that messaging a business is better for the business, it's better for customers. You know, so we have review invites and feedback and like even like marketing campaigns and other stuff that you can do. But really the key here is that this is a new way, a new channel and a way of interacting with your customers that's significantly and statistically better. And I think one of the sort of like preconceived ideas about it is, you know, I own a few domain names, and as a result, my phone number is on the internet in a lot of different places. And so I get a lot of spammy text messages. And if you've ever received those, they're very cringy. You know, not just from the politician you don't like, but also text messages from like, hey, Jared, we're a web dev shop. Do you need a new website? And I'm like, no, what? Who is this? I have no idea who's texting me. And I think there's a key difference between getting an unasked for, unsubscribed to cold text message versus getting a reminder from a local business of a deal that's going on right now, you know, where you actually have some recognition and some knowledge of the person who's sending you that message. And making yourself textable as a business is significantly different and will change the way and the number of customers that are able to interact with you. So Matt, I wonder if you could just speak to all these things that you can do over text.
Yeah, if you know, I recently moved to a new city and I needed to find a dentist, and it was inconvenient to find a dentist. All the dentists in my city, they were open from 9 to 5, and just so happens my work schedule is typically from 9 to 5, and so it felt like they could only accept calls when I couldn't call them, and anytime I could call them, they weren't there to receive the call, and so I ended up finally finding one that I could send a message to, and we connected that way. But I just thought it would have been so much easier if we could have if I knew that I could have texted them and they could have texted me back. So once a business is textable and they've effectively enabled their business to receive text messages, you can imagine how it's easy if that same dentist wanted to schedule that appointment. I needed a cleaning. I knew I needed a cleaning. I wanted a cleaning. I just needed to finally put one on the books. And so I could have said, do you have any availability next week? And we could have gone back and forth and found a common time that way. The next would be answering questions. Again, if I keep that dentist example, I didn't know if they were accepting new patients. I didn't know if they accepted my type of insurance. I didn't know if they, also did pediatric dentistry so I could bring my kids with me. I just had a handful of questions that maybe they didn't explicitly explain on their website. You can also streamline operations. So if you imagine there's one person sitting at that desk receiving inbound phone calls, and if you can bring in a text message, and if you know it's about a certain type of topic, you could route it to a different person. You could have templates to send back where you effectively are just copying and pasting the same response. Odds are the question that I'm asking, they're getting all the time, and they probably have some canned replies. So one of the biggest benefits of texting is that way to streamline your operations and become more efficient. It's also easy to capture leads. When someone calls in, there's not a good way. It's kind of strange to just call them back and say, hey, you called me a month ago. Are you still looking for a dentist? But on the texting, it's not that hard to say, hey, we never ended up scheduling an appointment. Do you still want to do that? If you go back up to the top, it talks about getting reviews. So it's easy. Once you've had somebody's phone number, you can send them a link via text message, and like we talked about already, they're going to open that or see that 99% of the time. You could also do that with just surveys. Maybe you don't want public reviews, you want internal feedback, so you send a survey. It's sometimes appropriate to send out a promo campaign where you want to notify 25% of your customer base that you have a sale between now and the end of the year, or make sure you come in and get your cleaning before the end of the year, before benefits reset. And then maybe someone left, didn't pay, and it's easy to, again, send them a payment request via text message. And so you can collect that payment. I had another experience where, again, with the dentist, I guess they underbilled me by $7. And so they sent me a paper invoice saying, would you mind just sending us a check for $7? And I thought, this is even harder than that review invitation from the glass shop. I don't even know where my checkbook is, and so it was quite a pain. And so if you can create some easier ways to collect payments, you can basically send a text and let someone pay with Apple Pay via text message. So those are some pretty smooth, convenient ways to operationalize text messaging. So now the next question, as we go back to SEO, what else can I use text to help with my SEO? So with that, let's open up a poll question. So this is, do you prefer calling a business? And the two answers are yes, I need to speak one-to-one, or B, I only call as a last resort. So I'm anxious to see where the group is on this.
So far, results, Matt, are definitely in the favor of no, I only call as a last resort. So still climbing a little bit. We'll give them another few seconds, but yeah, not surprising, right?
No, not surprising. If you just imagine, I feel like before, it wasn't that long ago, you would say, I text my friends and I call a business. And we've all kind of come to the conclusion that I'd rather just text everyone. It's a little more convenient. And there are times when I do want to speak one-on-one. Maybe it's your physician and you want to actually communicate with them one-on-one. But a lot of the time, it's as simple as saying, "Can I reschedule my appointment?" or something simple. So I don't mean to say that we could just cancel our landline and it's unnecessary anymore. But I do think there's a pretty strong case to say, what conversations can we move to text that make your customers happy and make your business run better? Hey, the results are in. So it looks like it was basically 40-60. It was a 40-60 split where, yes, I do need to speak one-to-one. 60 was no, I only call as a last resort. And I would just guess that that's probably similar findings with a lot of your customers too. So finally, tip number 4: claim every business profile. You've all had the same experience. You'll be searching for a business. It will say, "Is this business yours? Log in to claim," or something like that. And effectively, we're saying you should be doing that as often as you can. Make sure your customers know where to find you, and those listings are accurate. So a quick way to spruce up your digital storefront: you want to ensure your info, your hours, your address, all your contact methods, your phone numbers, all of those are up to date. Especially with all the closures we experienced in 2020, if I look at a business now, I always, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is this current? Are they actually open? Are those their real hours? Do they? I know it says they don't do curbside pickup, but maybe they do. And so if you can go through there and make sure that information is all accurate, you will really be doing yourself a favor. On the same vein as sprucing up your storefront, I have a friend who owns an optometrist shop. She is an optometrist, and I went in December and got my eyes checked. I feel like in my old age, I wanted to see if I finally needed glasses, and I don't. So that's a good sign. But I noticed that she didn't have a lot of listings, and I mentioned something to her about helping her out. And so I just went on Google. I took about 8 pictures and one brief little video walkthrough of her exam room, of the front area, and I posted that. And now every month, because I'm a Google local guide, I get information saying, hey, your photo has been viewed X number of times. Now, I would have thought a small optometry office, in a suburb of Salt Lake City, I just didn't even know how many views that my picture might get. In the last 6 months,
It looks like Matt froze. Jared, are you still with us?
so I would say through and
There we go.
Hey, Matt,
um,
you want to run
yeah.
that back a minute? We had you cut out for a second there. Just take it from small suburb of Salt Lake City.
Yeah, there we go. Well, the gist of the story is I had I posted that photo of her building, and I got 90,000 views on my picture in the last 6 months. And so Google has basically made my picture the default of her digital storefront. And in my case, it worked out well because I posted good pictures. But before that, I feel like she was showing lower in the search results, and the photos that she had just weren't that compelling. So go ahead and take your own pictures and make sure you have quite a few, and that they're a good representation of your business, because it turns out people really do look at those. And sorry for cutting out there. So next, let's talk about using text from first contact to final sale. This isn't meant to say texting is the only way business gets done, but just consider how enabling short form messaging for your business can really change the way you're operating. So really, if let's just say someone finds you, let's go back to buying a bike. This is a good example no matter what your business is. If as a customer you are looking for a website, or you're looking for a company, and you browse their website and you find a phone number and you text them and say, hey, I'm looking for this type of a bike, do you have it? So that you effectively have now made text contact. And let's just say that weekend you go, you're ready for a test drive, you schedule a time to do a ride, they meet you at the bike, maybe you even make a purchase right then and there. They might send you a survey or a review invitation to see how you like it, but it's really not done there. What could potentially happen is 6 months later, they might say, hey, I need to get this serviced. It's not running as well as it was when I bought it. Can I bring it back in? Or they might even say, at this point, I'm looking for a bike for my child. Do you have any of X, Y, and Z? And so in a way, you've effectively gone from them searching for a new bike store every time they pull out their phone and Google it, to now saying, this is my bike store and I've got them in my contacts and I'm just going to call them directly. So then specifically, I wanted to give you an example of what that text flow and experience can look like for a review. So let's just say you have that bad review. Jared talked about this earlier, where maybe you have a couple bad ones. It's not a big deal if you have a lot of positive ones. So try to show that that's really the outlier instead of the norm. In our program specifically with our tool set, you can send a review invitation, you can see if they click, and then you can even pull that same review into your inbox and reply right there all in one place. And so getting reviews just becomes really simple. Next, in that same vein, you can, instead of doing a standard website chat, you can turn those into text message conversations. And so I think we've all been in a website chat where you are kind of on hold for 5 minutes. In that amount of time, you navigate away or you step up from your computer and you forget it. By the time you come back to that conversation, you get that message saying this conversation has ended due to inactivity. And that's really frustrating. You try to do it again and maybe the same thing happens. And so if you can turn those conversations into text, that message, that conversation doesn't end when that person navigates away from your website. Now, I hinted at this earlier. Here's a quick view of what Podium can help you do. Once your business is text enabled, there's a handful of things that we can do to operate on top of that textable phone number. And so we can bring all of your messages into one place, rather than having a cell phone that you're handing around from person to person in your office. We bring all those messages into one spot that you can assign from person to person to person. But then on top of that, you can send payment requests. You can bring your website chat into our inbox. You can have internal conversations that are all in the app, and so you don't have to switch from app to app to app. Our customers on the review side are seeing a 20% conversion rate on their review invitations. And so that's just a fantastic way to drive a lot of reviews quickly. We do have the ability to do mass campaigns messaging, where you can send all of your customer base a text message, which has a really high engagement rate. And then we can do net promoter score surveys with our feedback product. And then occasionally it's helpful to do even a video chat where let's just say it's a dental office, and rather than going in, you just do a quick video chat with the physician, with the dentist. So the Podium effectively has the right tools for your company, no matter big or small, young or old. Effectively, your customer base is changing, and Podium gives you the tools to keep up with those changes. So with that, we want to open it back up for any questions and see if we can help.
Perfect. That was a great background, you guys. Thanks for really digging into those tips. So we'll get into the Q&A. We only have a few minutes for that. But Raj, I just want to say that if we had a badge or a sticker that I could send you for the most engaged person in our chat today, Raj would win it. Okay. Great feedback. And they're not even just questions, it's just conversation to kind of keep things going. So we really appreciate it. But I can tell you, to the Podium team, you're going to have a lot of follow-up to do with these questions, because we got a lot of them. So let's get into it. So Cheyenne is asking, Jared was talking about fake reviews and Google seeing through these fake reviews. Cheyenne works for an agency and often advises her clients to get real reviews from clients and lay out exactly how. Sometimes the clients take the easiest way out by purchasing reviews or posting fake reviews themselves from different accounts. They think they're cheating the system, but can you help me find a way to a constructive way to get through to them?
Yeah, depending on who you're dealing with, you may never get through to them. But my advice would be that when you take a step back and try and think, okay, what Google's trying to accomplish is serving up the best businesses to answer the intent of the people searching for those businesses. So like if you're a local business and you're like, well, I own a pizza shop, my pizza's terrible, but I'm just going to buy a bunch of reviews. That doesn't solve the problem, because then you just get more people coming to your business, more negative reviews. The heart of this is a customer experience problem. And if you can take a step back and figure out like what are the bottlenecks or what are the choke points in my customer experience that may be causing some bad reviews, that's sort of the heart of the issue. And that's like an operational issue that can potentially like take your business to on a different trajectory to the next level. So like you can always try and buy fake reviews and you can like get fake followers on Twitter, but it's the same, because if I have 1 million fake followers on Twitter and I post something, I'm going to have no engagement. And if my engagement is low, Twitter will see that and they will know that it's low, or they'll be able to match those followers to spammy accounts or specific IP addresses. Google's been doing this a long time. The other thing I would mention is that for the first time in, I believe it was Italy last year, 2 years ago, it was in 2019, I believe, someone was arrested and put in prison for providing fake reviews for hospitality businesses. So it is getting more serious because there is money on the line. And I would just say that like, that's not a path you want to go down. It's not sustainable. And the alternative is easier. It's honestly easier to automate your review invitations and fix your customer experience than it is to go out and buy fake reviews every couple of months. So I would say take the easy way out and, provide a great experience for your customers.
Agree,
I'd just like to
100%.
add
Go ahead.
briefly to that. You can imagine Google probably doesn't get outsmarted that often, at least not in the long term, maybe in the short term, but it's probably just a short-term gain. And then you're probably also not outsmarting your customers. So I've seen a handful of companies effectively do that, and then Google figures it out and just deletes all those reviews. And so it's not like it's this permanent review that you've generated. Google can just delete it at any time. So it turns out to not actually be a long-term benefit to that business.
Great. I think we might have time for one more question. So Melroy is asking, what is the criteria? And I know that you all talked about, Google Photos and the one that you specifically, uploaded, Matt. But, he's wondering what is the criteria for Google My Business to serve some photos or posts over others? Are there some photos or posts which seem to clearly favor Google being?
I can talk about that. I can talk about that briefly. Again, we don't know what the algorithm on Google side is going to do, but there are a few things you can try to optimize for. I posted 6 pictures, and one of them took off, and so almost with a lot of your content, some of your content is going to do better than others, and so I wouldn't try to go all in and try to find that one perfect picture. I would post a lot of pictures and even videos, and it does seem like Google also tries to favor some of that user-generated content on the photos and video side. And so see if you can find someone to post that for you. But the picture that also seemed to take off, I had some of the waiting room, I had some of effectively the front desk. But the one picture that did the best was a picture of the exam room with all the equipment that they had in there. And I don't know how Google knew one picture versus the other, but it seemed like that was the richest content in the picture, and that was the one that has taken off.
Yeah, and I might just add something to that to try and get the last word in here. You really don't know what's gonna do it, what's gonna win, and what's gonna take off. And so the key is having a process in place that generates this type of content, that generates reviews consistently, every single month, because that really does compound over time, and that compounding effect will change the trajectory of your business.
Yep.
One quick pitch for Podium, I guess, is that there's two things I think of when I think of what marketers need to do, and this is at any business today. One of those is grow website traffic. The other one is improve the conversion rate of that website traffic. If you were to just do those two things, you would basically win every time. You'd get more people to your business every month, and a higher percentage of those people would become customers. The suite of products that we have does those two things without almost any effort on your part. So it really becomes sort of this semi-automated local business tool that changes how you interact with customers, and that really can skyrocket the trajectory of your business.
Yeah, and who's not looking for a little bit of automation to help out on the day-to-day, right? So, I mean, so with that, we are at the top of the hour. So you can find Podium at podium.com. We will link that when we send out the recap and the recording after this. You all will get that today. And so Jared, Matt, I mean, thank you so much for being here with us today. To our watchers, you'll get that recording in a couple hours. It was a great conversation. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to everyone's questions because we had some great ones. The Podium team will be sure to follow up with those, so expect a follow-up. Stick around for that short survey. Again, it takes no more than 5 minutes, helps us improve webinars overall. But with that, we bid you farewell until the next time. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.